systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the main Slate show, Week 13. Got my guys with me, Hoop and Title. As always, going to break it all down for you, go game by game. We'll pop up the stone over at SHIPIT Nation. But real quick, want to let everybody know, make sure to hit the like button, but also big one today, the subscribe button. We're so close to 9,000. Those that have been in the loop and know what's going on, when we do get to 9,000, I think we're 29 subscribers away. We are giving away the 6-month $549 package, which is all access, including Shiptimizer, our optimizer. So keep that in mind. Make sure you subscribe. Hoopster, got to bring you in first, man. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, but the chat's not letting it go. They were loving it, man. The shirtless shoey came out. So talk to us, man. What's going on?
Yeah, I felt bad. I mean, it was far. Like this bet was in the summer, and never really got around to doing it. But I hope the wait was worth it, because I think I went a little beyond the necessities of this bet. And I said on the show that we did Wednesday, I said I think tomorrow is going to be the day, boys, and I'm going to make it happen. And that's what happened. I think it turned out well. Some good reactions. Shirtless shoey. Got the little dance at the end.
Yeah.
I think it went well. I mean, does that satisfy the debt that I owe you in the YouTube chat? I'm assuming that's good enough, right?
It's definitely good enough. I mean, first of all, you also put in the little dance at the end, which even the bot in the Discord can't catch, but some people caught what the shuffle was, the hoop shuffle. So, even the politics bot can't make that one go away. So we appreciate the little add-on and extra that you gave the people. Yeah. I thought that was good. Title, what did you think of it, man? You watched it, and then how you doing, man? Another free money Sunday.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely loved it. Everyone I was around, all the buddies were loving it. I mean, yeah, it took a little too long, Hoopster. I hope when the Ravens get past the Lions, I don't have to wait 8 months to collect that money. But
no. You know, when it comes to the financial transactions are quick with Hoopster. You know that. It's the actual having to do something that might take a little bit longer.
You made up for it. I thought it was good, though. So,
we talked about it a little bit on the Friday show, but obviously this is like the main show for sure. And I'll just give a quick rundown of how it all went down, the timing of it. And, it's been a big talking point of the show. So said on Wednesday, I said I was going to do it on Thursday. I was going to my parents' house for Thanksgiving. And so we rolled up there right before the Lions game started, wanted to get settled in, watch the Lions. So the game, when I rolled in, my mom and dad are like, "What the hell are you doing with one shoe?" I was like, "Well," I said, "I got to do this, pay off this bet. It's called a shoey." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I said, "Well," I said, "this will just be easier to explain, like when it happens." I said, "You'll understand it very." It was like, people are actually doing this. I said, "Well, it's like a little inner circle like bet thing, and I guess it's entertaining." So Lions game started. I cracked a beer, housed the first one pretty quick because it was looking solid for the Lions. And I think it was right before halftime, because my wife, Mrs. Hoop, knew that it was going down. I told the kids about it. They were kind of pumped because they wanted to see it. And it just something hit me. It was like a commercial break. There's like 7 minutes to go in the second half. I was like, now's the time. And they're like, really? I was like, yeah, it's going to go down now. We'll get this out and get the video posted, before halftime, so everyone can kind of look at it and laugh at it, because I had a feeling it was going to be pretty funny. So went outside, took the shirt off. Wife, it was a family event. It was kind of cool. I had the wife, the kids behind the camera. My mom and dad were there for support as well. And it was a backup grass cutting shoe. So if everyone wanted to know that, I have my main pair. My main pair is about dead. I mean, some of the rubber's wearing off the bottom. This is the next pair that's going to be used for grass cutting, and it's about, 15-year-old shoe. I used to wear it, haven't worn it, so it's not like it's like a clean shoe or anything. Could definitely taste like the dirt. It was like an awkward taste after. It was not like standard beer aftertaste. There was something more in the mix, and it went down way smoother than anticipated. You get a little spill. I mean, there's no way to avoid. It's never going to be a clean pour in your mouth, but it went down super fast. I mean, it went down quick, smooth. Tossed the shoe, hit him with the dance. and boom, that was it. History.
And Lions still pulled off the win.
Lions.
And by the way, it set up for some sweats for the day for you because the Lions pulled it off in the end. That could have been close. Could have went to OT.
Yep.
And then don't forget your big Dallas big boy bets there. And that was getting a little bit scary for a minute, but still pulled it off. So Hoop stays on fire. Let's do it again today. Some good comments in there, so a couple out there. And let's hope for a Dawson Knox on the winner on Showdown tonight because Ham said he's going to follow it up and do a dunk bomb as well. Yeah. So
wow, the shoey that would have to be so the shoey straight to dong bong. That would be I could ship the dong bong down to Ham if he wants to execute that.
Shit. All right. Well, that's enough. We will get to it. Everyone wants us to get to the stuff, so that's fine. We'll pull it up over here. Let's go to the Stone. Let's start there. And Title, I'll get your first grand scheme overview here as we hop into it on this slate. 10 games we're looking at. Obviously, we always pull up the first one, get to 400 likes, and we'll bring the Stone back. Let me just pop it up there for you. But grand scheme overview, well, they can look at this Title, talk about this 10-game slate, what we got at hand.
Yeah, we talked a little pre-show. I mean, it feels like we've had relatively a similar slate the past couple of weeks where many want to go down at quarterback. People want to go relatively down at tight end. Taysom Hill, I think, will be pretty popular, so 5K, maybe a little different there. And some people will spend a little more at wide receiver. Lately, it's felt like the Achans of the world, Kamaras of the world, McCaffrey 2 weeks ago, living in that 8K range a little bit. Chase Brown, you do get a little price discount. There's a clear chalk at a couple different spots, what we'll talk about, like there is most weeks, like there has been the past couple. But again, I think outside of Herbert, if you want to pick a stack, I think all the ownership kind of spreads out to an extent. If you like Joe Burrow or you like you name it, I think you play that stack today. Receivers, people are spending up a little more than usual. The value, again, isn't too great, but like Pukas of the world. Last week, everyone was playing, I mean, all the chalk out there, Sutton, Jacoby's, but no one really over 6K people were going to because they were going up at running back. This week, I think receiver people will spend up a little more. But again, I'm looking at this slate. For a 10-game slate and the lowest total at like 42, it feels a little more concentrated than I initially expected. Obviously, the Dobbins injury, so there's Gus Edwards, Chase Brown stuff. Higgins looks too cheap, but I think it's a really good slate where you can get different in multiple spots and still eat chalk like always.
Yeah, I like that breakdown. And Hoop, I'll kick it to you just on a quick thought with that. Like I thought Title really nailed it. Well, almost like last week. I know you can add up some of the other weeks, but last week price is a little different. But like even this week, Gus Edwards could be like last week's Amir Abdullah, right? Where he was in that same price range. He definitely flipped the build a little bit, had a good game, but wasn't really needed or found on any of the winners because a lot of people are still sticking to these balanced builds, right? You can fit in just all these mid-range guys, cheaper quarterback. This week it's the Chase Browns and some of the others that make it all happen. What's your first thoughts, just your overlook on this slate?
Yeah, it seems like the same slate we've had for a few weeks in a row, like Title kind of alluded to. There's like a few spends at quarterback that are honestly tough to get to. Like it's tough to play Hurts with A.J. Brown. Like you're immediately strapped for cash. Same can be said kind of for Lamar Jackson. It's a little cheaper because Zay Flowers has a price break today. But, Lamar with Zay, it dries up really quick. If you go in and just run it in an optimizer, you're not going to get a bunch of it. So you got to kind of force it in. And I'm hoping that one of these high-end quarterbacks pay it off one of these weeks because I've been overweight every week and it really hasn't happened. I'll be going right back to the high-end quarterbacks again because the ownership is going to just be so low and they have the ability to nuke the slate. So really hoping that one of the high-end guys goes off today. We'll talk through it and we go game by game. Running back position seems very similar to me the last few, especially last week. I like the Amir Abdullah correlation to Gus Edwards because it could be a similar situation, but there's like 10, 12 really good running back plays and can't play them all. You got to make some cuts. It's a difficult position for that reason because there's just so many plays. I mean, Chase Brown's going to get the most ownership, but Chase Brown and probably Alvin Kamara get a big chunk. Then after that, it's pretty spread out, but a lot of really good plays. And then you go to wide receiver and there's plays there, but it's, kind of more like ho-hum, not super excited type plays. I think T. Higgins is underpriced. Some other cheap guys that we'll discuss as we go on. And then at the tight end position, people probably looking to save a little bit. Taysom Hill was mentioned, very solid play, is going to be pretty popular, but, a lot of solid tight end plays. So I think we see a lot of double tight end builds this week as well. So it just seems like we've had this slate at least a few times in the last month or two, 4 or 5 times. So we'll go through and talk through every game, but just it seems very similar to the slates we've had recently.
Yeah, I like that breakdown. I think it's going to be important. And the other point the title said earlier too, that just think it's going to be a spot where people say, oh, the chalk hit again. But it's like if you're on Chase Brown, who's going to be super popular this week, and we'll get to that game in a minute, after we hit the first one, but you have it with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Well, yeah, the chalk hit at running back, but did you play it with Joe Burrow and did you play it with Chase and they went off and broke the slate or whatever that might be, if that's the spot that does it. So there's just plenty of ways that you could still mix it in. And I like one thing you said too, Hoop, and I talk about this a ton with an optimizer and the benefits of it. It's really hard if you're hand building a team this week to go Jalen Hurts and then figure out where to go. And you're like, oh man, I'm running out of money fast. Whether you play one lineup or 150 lineups, if you have an optimizer, we have Shiptimizer, very easy to use. You can even set up some of the presets on Shiptimizer to get you a tournament-ready team, more competitive lineup, and you just lock in Hurts and build 20 teams and see what that looks like. Then you can virtually hand build. You can say, okay, now I see what that does to me for my lineup and where it ranks against some of the other ones. So I really think it's important to have an optimizer. And if you guys want to get one right now, go to shipitnation.com, get Shiptimizer. If you don't know what it's all about, the tutorials are free. So you can go to the site, shipitnation.com, click tutorials under Shiptimizer and see how this thing works and what it can do for you. And then we've got all the promos still running from Black Friday. It should have been the Shoey specials. But just to note it, the rest of the season, by the way, too, we called our shot yesterday. We told you football is not just NFL. It's also college football. Shout out to our guy in the Discord. I think it's Purdon, or I don't know exactly how to say his username, but won the $50K up top yesterday in college football. So college football team dialed in. We got NFL rest of season packages, $99 for the rest of season instead of $160 plus, paying it monthly, or $129 if you want to try it out with Shiptimizer. So now's the time to get in. Let's go to this first game here. Hoop, I'll stay with you. What are we doing with this one? Because Herbert is a good starting place for this slate. Looks super popular today. Oh, the extra long mute today must be fiction. Full milli, maybe.
Hopefully we get the full throttle victory after that one. He's one of the quarterbacks, though, in the mid to upper 5K range that people are going to want to go to today. You see with the Chargers, they've kind of been early on in the season. It was a disaster for their passing offense. They just wanted to run the ball. And I think Herbert's done a really good job passing the ball and running himself. So they're kind of loosening up things a little bit. No J.K. Dobbins today. Have to imagine that they're willing to pass it a little bit more. I think he's in a really, really good spot. And you have clear guys to pair him with. You can go to Ladd McConkey, who's looked really good. You can go to Will Dissly, who's looked really good. And then, someone in the chat said Quentin Johnson revenge game. Oh, my. Like we talked, I don't know what show it was that we talked about it, but man, that was bad. Like, and they kept throwing to his ass too. Like, if I'm a quarterback and I throw two balls that get dropped, your ass is not seeing a ball the rest of the game. Like, I get trying to get a guy involved, but that was bad. I mean, yeah, I guess if it's him, like that's he still has a price tag. It's not like he's free. I mean, 5K and then 62 on FanDuel. Like, I'm not clicking that name. Maybe they do try to get him something early to get him involved. There's a decent chance his ass drop. It's been going on for it's not like a new thing either. Like, he's dropped passes ever since he's come into the league. He's looked terrible. So yeah, if you want to go there, go for it. Should be low owned, but I have zero interest. If you want to, did you want to add something to that?
I just thought that was the best one I've seen in a while. Shout out to New Ones coming through with the one line of John Stone hands. That's a really good one. And and shout out to our guy Nick, by the way, too. Speaking of college football, no stat correction this week. If you remember Nick from last week in the college football streets, took a last-minute stat correction from 5K to 3K or 25, whatever it was. He went with the nobody cares, work harder mantra, came right back the next week, didn't complain, ships 20K, just like that. So congrats to Nick as well. College football has really been dialed in. So go ahead, anything else?
Yeah, so really good game overall. Like, I kind of figured when J.K. Dobbins, when we got the news, I think it was Friday, that he was going to be out. It could have been yesterday. I just figured Gus Edwards would become mega popular, and it's like not the case. Like, I was anticipating like Gus Edwards hitting Chase Brown range in terms of ownership, and just not the case. It looks like. I mean, we're showing 10%, and that's pretty much along the industry standards, like right around that range. And if that's the case, like, man, I think he's a really good play on this slate because it does open up the ability to play some of those higher end quarterbacks, which I'm trying to do personally today. We talked about that in the opening. I want to play the Jalen Hurts, the Lamar Jacksons, the Jaden Daniels of the world. If you mix in a heavy dose of Gus Edwards, you're able to get more of those teams. So I hope that ownership holds true. I think it probably comes up a little bit higher than the 10 range, but regardless, like I think it still represents really good value on this slate and leverage, assuming that ownership stays in check. And then you have really solid run backs on the other side, which makes this game really appealing from a stacking standpoint, overstacking standpoint. You got Bijan Robinson, very good play. You got Drake London, probably too cheap, but definitely too cheap on DK at 65, and then even on FanDuel at 73. Mooney's price tags come down a little bit. We know the story with Ray McLeod. Title always talks about he's on the field constantly. He's always out there. He's cheap. And then you got a tight end in Pitts. You got 4 different offensive players that I think are actually 5 offensive players that are in play. And then like Kirk Cousins, I don't like on DK, but 6,900 on FanDuel, I'm interested over there. I mean, I think that represents a solid price tag, and it's not like he's going to be super popular because of the sub 7K price tag. We're showing slightly below 5%. So very appealing game to start with. One of these games that there's so many different ways to go. You can do anything from single stack it to all the way to like a game stack situation. And that's what makes it nice for fantasy purposes. Nothing to really worry about in terms of ownership either. So really good game to start with. Very excited for this one.
Yeah, Title, I'll throw it over to you because, some of this stems from the cash streets as well. Very obvious, but like this does seem real. Shout out to our guy, Kenny, like Hoop always talks about this part, and it still runs true after these 2 guys, I think. But to his point, it's going to be Herbert. It's going to be A-Rich, who we'll get to shortly. And then you also have the Georgia boy, the homecoming for Lab McConkey. So, there's thought process around that as well. But give us your thoughts on this game, Title.
My clear favorite plays in this game are Bijan and Lad. I'm a little hesitant on the Herbert stuff and Gus. Herbert stuff, definitely just the ownership mainly. Like I could see him getting steam when people play Herbert. The first people they're going to plug in is Lad and Disley. Yes, you can go to some Johnston. Click and Palmer is not fun on this slate. So the chalk quarterback with a concentrated target or like target pool, I don't love in tournaments. Gus Edwards stuff, and again, I probably will play some Herbert. He can get there with his legs. I am hesitant, though, because of that. The Gus Edwards stuff I'm even more hesitant on because the Hassan Haskins guy, we talked about it on the Showdown slate, doubled up Gus Edwards in touches or in snaps last week. Now they're going to get Vidal, the rookie. I expect him to be active. I expect him to play a role in this game. 46.5 rushing prop for Gus Edwards, plus 100 to score. Like you tell me he scores 40 or 47 on the ground and scores a touchdown. I still don't think he's probably optimal on this slate. Again, the price is way down there, but you can't miss at running back. There's so many strong plays. I'm nervous on a 10-game slate. Like he does leverage off of Herbert stuff. I do think the ownership probably is right. So you get that part, but I'm nervous about Haskins and Vidal for sure. Yeah, now Vidal over Edwards, I mean, that's a showdown play for me. Like, I don't think you really need to go there quite in main slate. I just think not playing Gus would be enough. Lab, I definitely like, even without Herbert. The homecoming stuff I love, but in a dome, I mean, Quentin Johnston, like Hoop said, Herbert wants to look more at Lad this week from Johnston last week. Disley I'm fine with. I do prefer in Herbert stuff. But with the ownership on the Chargers, I'm definitely going to be an underweight approach. Lab, my favorite, is a one-off. Falcon stuff, I love Bijan. We talk about him pretty much every single week. At home, close game, right as a pivot from Alvin Kamara, who's going to be a lot more. Bijan's a couple hundred less. The snaps have been great compared to Algier, finally in that 75-25 range. He's just, I mean, eye test-wise, I think he's one of the best running backs in football at fair ownership. 18. Yeah, I think that's about fair. Maybe we're a little hot there, but at home, in a dome, great running back. Other side of some of the chalk stuff. If Herbert stuff busts, Lad stuff busts, how does that happen? Falcons probably keep it on the ground, take the arrow to the football, and do it that way. So Bijan, my favorite play in this game.
Yeah, I like the Bijan.
I want you to talk about Cousins stuff too, though, because in this ownership, the Stone, I think, is talking me out of it. But just Kirk Cousins in a dome, zero ownership, and the clear London, Mooney, Ray, always play 11 personnel, Pitts tight end, no one's playing any of them. How many times does Cousins go for 300 plus? So you talk to me about that.
Well, I think it's interesting only because it's large field tournament stuff. But if, what I always talk about is, speaking of college football, which we just hit on and shout out to our winners, in that it's a super flex game. What's often found in the super flex? It's a quarterback, because that is the best correlation in football. If Herbert goes off, he likely needs to be pushed from the other side. And we see it all the time. If you play DFS for any length of time, you've seen where everyone's on this quarterback and it ends up being the quarterback on the other side. Everyone's on this running back it ends up being the running back on the other side. Same with defenses, everything. It's all can go the opposite way because one makes the other thing go. And like you said, at least with the Cousins side, it's more the Stone talking me out of it as well, just to be honest, because you said it and just seeing it, I just don't see enough. But I think it correlates to what I was going to say anyway, so I'll bring it all together to round out this game, and then we'll move on and go to Hoop for Steelers-Bengals. But you said a good point about like the Vidal versus Edwards stuff, and I brought this up last week on the Takedown Breakdown after I kind of wish I had harnessed in my Kareem Hunt ownership last week because I was never I'm still never Mahomes. I said it on the show. I didn't play it. I didn't want to go Mahomes. But the fact I explained how you could have went, why was it a good Mahomes week? Because everyone's on Hunt. They're playing the Panthers. They're up huge. There's a chance it's that. If I believe that that's possible, I don't have to go that route. It just makes me harness in my Hunt ownership. In this situation, to your point, Title, what you just said, and it kind of makes sense for the Falcons stuff too, you don't have to go Vidal if you don't believe in Edwards. You just don't have to go to that spot. You can just say that makes me harness in my Gus Edwards, and kind of like you could tie it all together with even what Hoop said. If playing these big boy quarterbacks and these heavy stacks makes sense to go Gus Edwards because now I'm going to have to find money somewhere and that's the spot. And then if you want to pull the trigger on Vidal out there, go ahead. But you don't really have to do that. You can just move off a spot because of a feeling you have for it. So I thought that was just a really good way to round it out. So I'll leave it there. Real quick, guys, just going to pull this up fast. As I showed you, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure it says subscribed on the channel. 8.97K. When we get to 9,000, we will be giving away the $549 6-month all-access Wish Shiptimizer package. So Stone goes away till we get to 400 likes. Make sure you guys are smashing that like button. Hoopster, go back to you if you want to take over. It's the Steelers at the Bengals is the next game up. And you already talked about Chase Brown. We know probably the highest owned on the slate, right?
Yeah, most likely it's looking like that. I mean, it's going to be very, very popular. The workload's very secure. They're at home. They're favored. The matchup's not the best, but volume can always overcome matchups at the running back position. That's one thing that always remains true. So it's really tough to look at, a cheap running back and say, oh, well, the run defense on the other side is too good to play him. I mean, the volume just offsets that. And that's the case here. Going to be very popular. Going to play them, obviously. I think it's a good spot for the Bengals in general, like at home. They always play better as the season goes on later in the season. And I don't even know what the record is, but I'm sure they're going to try to make a push here down the stretch. It's been a disappointing start for them. But Chase Brown, I think, is a really strong play, and there's no doubt about it. One way to definitely leverage off of Chase Brown, which I'll be doing today, is to play the Burrow stuff. And you have some very direct targets to go with Joe Burrow. T. Higgins, underpriced. He's going to be popular too, but Jamar Chase, I don't hate as well. I mean, Jamar Chase can just absolutely nuke a slate. We've seen it numerous times. Ownership should be relatively low. So, Burrow, Chase, Higgins, fine with all that. It gets tough with the tight ends. Now they're cycling in all these guys. It was Gesicki for a while. I don't have much interest there. So it is kind of consolidated for me around like Burrow, with Chase, with Higgins, and you can play him with Chase Brown too. I mean, he catches passes. So that's kind of how you can do things with the Bengals. I don't love the spot for the Steelers. So for me, the only play on the Steelers side is going to be George Pickens. One thing I did notice, I kind of went through the props today, and I'm sure Title saw this as well. Very solid number for Pickens. I mean, the prop numbers for Pickens remain elevated. I want to say mid 70s, maybe close to 80 in terms of the receiving yards.
75.5.
Yeah, that's a big boy number for him. So I wasn't super interested in him, and props aren't the end all be all, but that kind of pushed me on him a little bit, knowing I'm going to be on the Burrow stuff, knowing I'm going to be on Chase Brown. I will play Pickens on the other side. Does have a good connection with Russ Wilson, but that's it for me on the Pittsburgh side.
Yeah, Title, I'll go to you. This is it's almost like the Cousins thing. So flip back to you now on this. Again, the Stone pushing me off it, but sometimes when I think about it, like Pickens, Freiermuth, and I play some Calvin Austin, but I'll have him more in secondary stacks. I'm not playing Russ, but I was going to ask you about the Russ side. I much prefer the Burrow. It's just if you were stacking it up, it's not like this pass defense is very good against the Bengals. So it's like that's another thought that I have, but it's almost the same as Cousins. What's your thought on that in this game?
Yeah, this is just my bias. I know ball more than others, and I just hate Russell Wilson. So I would just rather play Kirk Cousins. Like I think he can go for 400 more likely, but the Pickens stuff, yeah, who took the words out of my mouth? That surprised me, his prop. Like, he's a big play guy, touchdown guy, but 75.5, and it comes back to what Tambo just said. This Bengal defense is no good. So I do like the Bengal stuff. I like Chase Chase Brown is one of the best roles in the NFL since Zach Moss has gone down, and he's actually a good running back, explosive, can catch out of the backfield. I definitely think that's good chalk. The T. Higgins stuff, like he is getting ownership, though. It's a lot because of the price. Talk about another prop, Chase 77.5 yards, Higgins 70.5, and you get 2K savings. Who leverages off of Chase Brown chalk and Higgins chalk? Well, Jamar Chase. If he goes off today, you can double both. You play Joe Burrow, you don't worry about T. Higgins getting his ownership because not many are going Burrow. You just want to go Chase Brown in this game. You can go just Chase Brown. You go Brown, Pickens. So I definitely like this game. It is condensed for me, though. If I'm going Burrow, I'm picking probably 2 or 3. I guess you could do 3 or 3. Chase, Higgins, Brown. I'm not going to mess with Yoshi Voss or the tight ends or any of that right now. And I guess the more I think about it, at Burrow's price tag and with such a condensed one, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with Burrow. I'm going to play some, but like in my main teams, I want you to talk a little bit about how he ranks amongst some others, Tambo, because 7K on DraftKings is up there when we're talking about like paying up at quarterbacks pretty tough. Easy for me, though, Steelers, it's Pickens or bust. But how do you rank Burrow amongst these other quarterbacks?
I've got him up there pretty high, actually. And I think part of it is it's a unique slate. It's not unique to what we've seen these last few weeks. But for me, the way I'm handling it at least is a little bit unique because I'm actually willing to go outside the box a little bit of what I normally do with Burrow. And I'm actually single stacking him some more than double stacking him this week. Even though it's easy to double and we know who to put it with, the prices are really what does it. Like at 7K, not cheap when you've got guys like Herbert at 5,600, like that you are paying a $1,400 bonus. And then Higgins is popular, but Burrow is not. So if I just do that, that's at least somewhat, and I'm not putting Brown into it. It's a different way to play the Bengals. And then of course, Jamar Chase, I've talked about this for years now, but when you have a receiver at almost $9,000, it's not even a guarantee that 30 points does it for you. Is that a great score for that price? Absolutely. But remember, there's other things that go with it. You're adding a 7K quarterback with 8,600. So for sure, when I'm going Jamar Chase, I'm putting it with Burrow. You talked about the ultimate leverage. Chase Brown, highest owned on the slate, and T. Higgins, very popular for good reason. Look at that prop. You just said 7.5 yards off and $2,000 less. It makes sense. But I think you can single stack Burrow here, and I've got interest in that. I'm just saying Burrow, Jamar Chase, cut out the Chase Brown and the Higgins, and then start filling in the values. You get a cheaper tight end. Your defense is going to be less. Maybe you don't even have to get to Gus Edwards at that point. And I'm definitely going to be looking in the 6K range at running back when I'm doing that because I'm trying to double leverage in a way that I think is more is sharp versus the field, knowing that if most people are landing on Chase Brown at 6,200 and I'm leveraging off that with Burrow and Jamar Chase, who can I plug in the middle to really double leverage on Chase Brown? Because now I pick up the points through the air and a running back that was a pivot off from right there in that range. So Hoop, I'll kick it back to you. Any other final thoughts on this one? Just going through it with us?
No, I think we talked through it pretty solidly. Nothing really to add.
All right, cool. Take us into the next one. It's the Texans at the Jags, and talking about pay up options. Where do you see this Mixon number getting to? Because certainly looks like a really good play, but just doing some builds beforehand and leading into this show and looking at what optimizers are giving you doesn't seem to be getting into many lineups at $8,000.
Yeah, and that was my main point with this game. It's the spot looks really good for Joe Mixon. He's been phenomenal. His role is virtually unmatched right now at the running back position, can kind of do it all. They give him a ton of work, but the 8K price tag is going to keep his ownership in check. There's no doubt about it. When you just run the optimizer, like my first run yesterday, I got 0 Joe Mixon. Just went through, ran it, get nothing. That means the ownership is going to be held in check, and that presents a pretty solid leverage situation in my eyes. So I want to be overweight on Joe Mixon. Part of the reason I want to be overweight on Joe Mixon because I'm not really getting to CJ Stroud stuff. So the best way to kind of, avoid that situation is hope that it's all Mixon. So I'll be overweight on Mixon. I'll have Nico Collins as an individual play, fine with him. I'll have Dalton Schultz, obviously. I mean, don't really need to mention that, but at 3.3K, he'll be in the player pool as well. Tank Dell, I don't know, maybe a little bit. But it's all individual plays for me in this game. Mixon, Collins, Schultz on the Houston side, and then Brian Thomas, and then Evan Ingram, I think, is a really good play on the Jacksonville side. So it's just those two guys, Thomas, Ingram, Mixon, Collins, Schultz, all individual plays. I'm not really stacking or anything here in this game.
Yeah, I think that's another call out just to say, like not even just Schultz, who's obviously a running joke, and you love Schultz, but there is some good secondary stacks here. And I think he would make that, you have to use a tight end. You could plug him in, pretty good projection for just $3,300. Use a Brian Thomas or something on the other side who looks pretty, getting some steam late, but obviously looks good there. On the other way, I like Evan Ingram as a tight end. He's sort of in between he's less than Taysom Hill, but more than most the Hunter Henrys and those guys of the world. So 4,800, he's interesting with Lawrence expected back and good to go. He's been better with him. I got to kick it to you on this title, because the mix and stuff, just again, staying on track with that. If people aren't getting to him, I just have to have, that's just a spot. He's 8,000. It's one of the best matchups going on the ground and through the air. Where are you at with him? And then maybe take it into Stroud a little bit too, because it's also a good passing matchup with Nico, Dell, Schultz, who we just talked about. What are you doing with this game?
Yeah, I think the Texans are in a smash spot. I mean, a great implied total for about 25. You have Nico with an 88.5 receiving prop, which is unheard of. One of the best spots for Mixon, coming off one of the worst matchups last game. I want to be in on these Texans. And if I'm in on Nico and Mixon, I think they move the ball. I look at CJ's ownership, look at his passing prop. Burrow the highest on the slate at 266, CJ 261. That's pretty close to that 300-yard bonus, which you told me any quarterback on this slate gets a 300-yard bonus. I am definitely in, and ownership isn't following. And then in addition, I love Trevor Lawrence back. I do think he's most definitely an upgrade from Mac Jones. Can help keep the game closer, and it benefits Evan Ingram as a pivot, like you mentioned, from Taysom. But I love Brian Thomas. I mean, it was just a couple weeks back when Brian Thomas was nuking every week. Everyone was really happy about him. Yeah, maybe he's catching a little steam, I agree, but it's still a very, very fair price tag. His ownership, CJ's not getting it. CJ, Nico, Tank Dell, kind of like your Waddle stuff. Eventually the wide receiver 2 who's unowned is going to get there. I definitely like the double stack right there. You can always play Schultz or any tight end with your guy. It has been so disappointing. My favorite way to go, definitely the CJ, Nico, Tank. If I'm not playing them, though, I love Mixon. I mean, if those guys bust, it would be Mixon, just pounding the ball, 2 touchdowns. The price tag will keep some ownership off. People want Kamara, then you can go Ingram on the other side. Or I think will be Ingram or Brian Thomas for me. I don't think I need to mess with any of them. But I expect Texans to put up points. They have clear guys I want. If I'm just one-offing, it's Mixon or Nico. Expect them to do all of them. If I play CJ, that's when I'll add in Tank. And then Ingram as a pivot, Brian Thomas. I like this game for sure.
Yeah, I think the secondary stack even can work with Nico Collins at only 7,900, because he's a guy that can just rack up those catches, and it would cut into the ownership a little bit of the Brian Thomas stuff on the other side. The other one you mentioned with Tank Dell, just looking at it, I got the stone up. We're 275 likes, so 125 more to bring it back, guys. But just to look, we've got him projected for 1.5 less than Brian Thomas at no ownership on the opposite side, and that's just another spot where you could definitely see that happen. So Tank Dell day could certainly be a thing. I think that's interesting. And just going back to the chat and a couple of things, that's certainly okay, Anthony. Shout out to you. Always here supporting. We appreciate you. If you want to lean into that chalk, just add Burrow into it. I'm good with that too. You've seen spots like that with Baker Mayfield, who we'll get to later, where you can just play him with a running back and one of his receivers or tight end. So I think that's definitely possible. And then we'll get to this later, Jake, too. We do have a Ravens, Philly, Eagles stack that we'll talk about. And what's this title? We got a Tyler in the family?
Yeah, we do. That's my brother. I just said, what's up, Tyler? How you doing, Ty?
Nice, man. The best name in the game. We got Double T out there again. Let's go, Tyler. That's perfect. So, Hoop, anything to add on the Texans, Jags? You brought it out first. Did you pick up anything else there that you wanted to add on? And if not, you could take us to the Cards, Vikings.
Yeah, I think I got talked into some CJ Stroud. It does make sense. I think it was a good breakdown by title. I'm going to play Nico. I'm playing Schultz. Tank Dell, low owned. You have some run backs on the other side that make sense, and Thomas and Ingram. So I added CJ Stroud. I'll play him today. I think it does make sense. And it's one of those situations. I've been playing his ass all season long. If he gets there today and I'm not on him, I'll be pretty sad. So.
Yeah. I agree, and I definitely got talked in too, because when Title said the 300 bonus point, that's a great point just on the slate as a whole. There's only, 10 games is not 14, so you're already condensed down some to start with. There's tons of quarterbacks we aren't going to talk about or just mention quickly and move on. So this would be a spot where you got a guy, we like some of the spot with him, and it is a good matchup that seems to be going a little bit overlooked. Still a pretty big team total, so I think that breakdown works out. And last week it was the New England game, Miami. when we talked about it for a while and started coming around on things and making decisions like this. And that turned out pretty well on the Tua side. If we had got maybe to more Waddle, that would have been even more helpful. But I think that's a pretty good breakdown. And Tank Dell specifically with Collins makes sense for me there. And Hoop, you can get your boy Schultz in there too. So, all right, take us into the next one, Hoop. We got Cards Vikings.
Yeah, so the Viking side is pretty clear. I mean, I think on the slate, Sam Darnold's a guy that's there with like Justin Herbert that we already talked about in that price range, has direct peer pairings. If you want to continue on the path of Justin Jefferson, which, again, I've been playing him, so I'm going to stick with it. Jordan Addison has looked really good at 53. Got TJ Hawkinson at 44, and then you can even pair him with Aaron Jones at 65. The Viking stuff looks very, very good today at home. Against a Cardinals team that is just, I don't know, they're just not good, and it's so hit or miss with them. So I definitely like the Viking side, all those pieces, Darnold, Jefferson, Addison, especially TJ Hawkinson. Really like him at the $4,400 price tag. And then Aaron Jones, pretty cheap. So in on those guys. Struggle a little bit on the Cardinals stuff. I mean, the Vikings defense is pretty good. They're on the road, not projected to score a ton. Trey McBride, I think, is a fine option, especially if you think they're trailing. He's like the perfect guy for a run back, because that's who Kyler Murray throws to when they're down. He had 15 targets last week. Marvin Harrison stuff really hasn't gotten there this season. Kyler Murray, I don't know. I'm probably just out on him. So it just really be McBride on the Cardinal side, and then I like all those Vikings guys. I don't know if you guys can maybe talk me into some of the Cardinal stuff, but as it stands now, I'm not all that interested.
I usually go to title first, and the real ones know why, but I'm going to title second on this one. It has to be the day. Title today has to be the day that it happens. Like it's been all season. This man has to have a 35 or 40-point game. It's got to happen. So talk to me about this one. I cannot be talked out of it. I'll tell you that much. But you go ahead, and I know you're not going to do that anyway. What are we doing here, man?
The price tag's down in a dome at home. You look at the Stone Cardinals defense, not great. You can definitely tell Jets has been frustrated. The thing is, I mean, he's getting bracket covered pretty much every game. Like he's that good. So what they did to CeeDee Lamb on Thursday too. Yeah, I mean, it's all Jefferson for me, for sure. I'm going to play Sam Darnold stuff because, like Hoop said, there's a lot of ways to go Vikings. If they take away Jefferson, you have Addison for cheaper. You have Hawkinson. Aaron Jones is a really good pass catcher himself. He's someone I'm going to be looking at as a pivot running back today. Minus 145 to score, can catch passes. Jefferson's going to get some ownership, and I definitely like him, but I do like some of the, like Trey McBride. I'd totally be fine with going Aaron Jones, Trey McBride. Jones does it on the Viking stuff. Of course, I do like Jefferson more, but I do think Aaron Jones is going to be forgotten a little bit. And again, can do it so many ways. McBride on the other side coming back. Going to play Darnold since there's so many ways to go about it. The thing with Kyler is, like, I've been going back and forth, but it feels like it'd be a mistake for me not to go Kyler with, like, his upside is 30 plus. With his legs, you look at the ownership on his pass catchers, all of them under 10%. Maybe McBride gets her 11 or 12, who I like a lot. Marvin Harrison's only 6K. James Conner is another one that I think you could use as a pivot running back. What talked me into Aaron Jones a little more was the props. Again, at home is favorites too, but minus 145 to score versus plus 105, right in the same range, both as pivots, which made me side Jones. So I like all the Viking stuff, whether you're going Darnold and stacking it up, whether it's Jefferson as a one-off doing it all, whether it's Jones as a one-off doing it all. And McBride's by far my favorite on the other side, but I am debating some Kyler stuff. And again, clearly you can single stack him too because of his legs. Vikings defense has been good, but it should be a solid game script. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all over Jefferson and the Vikings today.
Yeah, there's just so many ways you can go here. I think some of the most interesting would be like, I love McBride. So what you talked about already there, you could go just Darnold, Jefferson, McBride, cut it off there. You can go Darnold, Jefferson, Hawkinson. And I love the one call. Yeah, that would be a double tight end for me with McBride. I like running this one back personally, and I just think that's what I would be trying to talk you into, Hoop. Is I know you're on it anyway, but just to say that's the one guy. I don't care as much about the other stuff, but you talked about a title. That's another really interesting way you could go is Darnold, Jones, Jefferson, and then get McBride, and you could probably still get Chase Brown in there if you wanted to, even though that's one of the guys I was going to bring up earlier too. I like your secondary stack call of Jones McBride. Do a Jones McBride stack in a Burrow Chase whatever, and that's your guy. Like that's Aaron Jones. It's $300 more. You leverage it up with the Bengals stuff, and that's the builds that I like. So yeah, I think that's possible. I really like that call out. Hoop, did you get talked in anything else there, or any thoughts on the expanding on the McBride stuff? I guess is the main one.
Yeah, I mean, McBride, I think, is the clear play on the Cardinals. I don't think I'm going to get to the Kyler stuff. I don't know. I just like the more expensive quarterbacks going that route instead of a guy like Kyler at low ownership. But yeah, it's clear. I mean, you can do whatever you want on the Viking side. I think it all makes sense with Darnold. And to me, the clear run back is definitely Trey McBride, who could have a chance to get squeezed a little bit. I mean, people are going to be going Taysom Hill. People are going to be going a little cheaper at tight end. He's just the perfect guy in trailing game scripts. Saw it last week. We've seen it multiple times over the course of the last couple seasons. Pick up 4 or 5 catches when they're down by 20 at the end of a game, which is so key especially for DraftKings scoring.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add to that, because you brought up a point that just made me think of this, is like this is the other thing. When people are looking for diamonds in the rough, it's like this game is just presenting itself. There's almost no ownership here. Like if Aaron Jones is coming in at 10% and Chase Brown's going to be pushing 35 to 40, like that's a massive separation. You're allowed to play both together too if you find the right stacks. So go ahead. I'm just saying that's a way to cut into it quick. Jefferson, even if he pushes 15, that's not that much for a guy like him that could just break a slate in this spot. So Darnold getting almost no ownership. It's under 10%. He's one of the guys where it gets spread out, even though he's in that next tier. It's not even double digits, right? And then on the other side, like you said, McBride could stay under 10%. Nobody's on Harrison Jr. Nobody's playing James Conner. Like there's a lot of ways you can go here. And I think that's what makes games like this interesting, where everyone's talking about it, but they're not actually clicking the button because the ownership tells the story. So, Hoop, I'll stay with you, man. Let's go to Colts at the Patriots. Not as exciting, obviously, but give us your thoughts here.
Yeah, not a ton in this game. Anthony Richardson's in that group of mid to upper tier 5K guys that is going to be appealing when you go and build teams. If you go in there and optimizer and just hit build, you're going to get a shit ton of Anthony Richardson. But like, is that what you want on this slate? Like the floor is low. We've seen it. I mean, it's, they can get to 30 and the floor is like 10 or something. If he doesn't score a rushing touchdown, they get their ass kicked. Slight favorites here against the Patriots. You do have the injury with Josh Downs, which provides some value. I mean, Pittman, very cheap. Donnie Mitchell, 3,900, one of the cheap wide receivers today. But after that, it's like, I don't know. Do you want to pay $5K for Alec Pierce? Like, that doesn't sound all that fun. So the concern for me with Richardson is, I guess you don't have to stack him, so people will go no stack. But then it's like, it's very clear. It's either Pittman or Donnie Mitchell. Like, I'm going to play him. Am I excited to play his ass? No, to answer it. The run backs aren't all that appealing outside of Hunter Henry to me. I think Hunter Henry's fine at 42. He appears to be the main guy. Ramondre Stevenson, I think, again, more of a FanDuel play because of the price tag and the fact that you kind of want 3 running backs over there. Demario Douglas, booty guy that just goes out there and runs around the field apparently and does nothing. Just not all that exciting. I'm going to play it just out of necessity. I'm going to play the Colts side, I guess, out of necessity. And then like Hunter Henry is fine on both sides. Ramondre Stevenson, more of a FanDuel play for me, and I'm not playing Drake May.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good breakdown, kind of how I feel about it. I definitely like the Richardson stuff in skinny stacks, like just play him with the Donnie Mitchell or something like that. But our guy Hamwich is in the chat. He's been pretty good on these calls. I'll stick with him on this one. Again, why wouldn't they just keep it on the ground? And this is one, again, where I look at the stone and I just go and see, and I know why people are talking about Richardson for price and upside and all of that, what you could get out of him. And I know it's a pretty good passing defense or a pretty weak passing defense that they're going up against, but they're also a pretty weak run D. And you got a guy like Jonathan Taylor, they're really banged up. Why not just keep it on the ground and just try and jam him in there? And he's 6,900. So lots of, savings really versus some of these, like Mixon's 8K. We gave an example. You could see JT and he's big leverage on this slate. So Title, I'll kick it to you on that thought. And then what else do you got with this game?
Yeah, I definitely see it. I mean, you leverage off the Richardson stuff. It's popping on the stone, bad defense. I'm hesitant, though, because running back's great. Like 6.9K is still expensive. And the A-Rich goal line equity really concerns me as well. Like JT getting there, he has to get those goal line touchdowns. I don't love this game really, period. And showing ownership, I get Richardson in the skinny stack. I mean, he can do it with his legs. He ran bad last week. I mean, I don't know what Ogletree, I believe it was. Some dude dropped a wide open touchdown, hit him like in the face mask. He can get there in so many ways, but he's coming with ownership. And then you stack him with Pittman, Alec Pierce catches a 75-yard bomb. You stack him with Adonai Mitchell, he drops a touchdown, and it's a Pittman game, etc. Again, these guys are coming with ownership because of their price tags. No Josh Downs, but 51.5 Pittman receiving prop. Everyone else is below 50 in this game. Like, these are two bad teams. It's in Foxborough when it's cold. I mean, I think
what are the JT props?
To be honest, let me look quick because
I just got me curious because while you're looking it up, the chat's talking about it too. I should note, Indy D super popular on this slate, so a way to cut into that is one. You can play Richardson as chalk with Indy D, and we've seen those combos work before. But another way is with the running back. So I'm curious on this JT stuff.
80.5. That is a good prop for sure. Let's see what him to score is. Minus 120. That's the big thing. Richardson's plus 165. Yeah, you need the touchdown variance to go in your favor for sure. And then the Patriot side, I think it's just Stevenson Henry. Hunter Henry's my favorite one. Like, I mean, Drake May likes him a lot. 4,200, just a very steady producer. You can get 15, 16. Like, is he going to break a slate? Probably not, but I will definitely take that for 800 less. Then some Taysom ownership. I'm going to be underweight on this game because I know it's getting ownership. At the end of the day, I don't think A-Rich is a great quarterback. And then just pairing them is really tough. I think I would just want a skinny stack. Mitchell's cheap. There is Pierce. There is Pittman. Pittman will get the Pittman and Adonai. Thing is that then it's a Pierce game. So I don't love it personally. I'd rather take shots on a lower-owned Darnold, probably a lower-owned Kyler, lower-owned Burrow. I'll be looking at stuff like that.
Yeah, I see it, and that's what people are looking at, right? $9,400 for a quarterback like Richardson with his fantasy upside paired with Adonai Mitchell. If they connect, you're definitely getting there on $9,400 for the combo pack. If you want to put a Ramondre or a Henry, I like Hoop's call Ramondre on FanDuel. I think every running back we called out last week in that 6K range where it was kind of this delta of like it's 5,900 on DK, but only 6,400 on FanDuel, where you get 10K more to spend. All those guys last week of like the Pollards, et cetera, all them hit. This would be a Ramondre spot, I think, for Hoop's mention. Hoop, anything else now to add on this game? If not, you could take us to the Seahawks-Jets.
Yeah, nothing to add on that game. And, man, honestly, not a ton to add on this one either. Like, there are just a lot of games on the slate. There's 10 games on the slate, and I just always try to find games that I'm going to be mostly off or fully fade. And this might be the one for me. I mean, it's a low total, 41, cold weather, which, a lot of the outdoor games are cold weather. I think the Jets are a dumpster fire, and at some point they're just going to say, all right, it's over. We're done type situation. Breece Hall was questionable coming in. Does that mean more Braylon Allen stuff on that side? So for me on the Jets side, the only guy I'm playing is Devontae Adams, because I think Aaron Rodgers is incentivized to continue to throw him the ball. I mean, he made the big plea to get him there. It didn't work out. They still sucked. I think he has a chance. And the price tag, I believe, on FanDuel, again, is much cheaper. I think he's $7K on both sites, but the $7K on FanDuel is obviously much cheaper with the extra $10,000 in salary. So the FanDuel price tag definitely stands out for him. I will play him some on DK, but honestly, I think that's it for me on the Jets side. On the Seahawks side, like Kenneth Walker, kind of the same thing. Like I don't mind him, but I like 12 guys at the position better than him. Like if it's him, okay, then I get beat on the slate. And then like the wide receivers, DK Metcalf, JSN. I don't know. You just got to kind of pick your spots, and this is one that I'm willing to be underweight on. And if this game goes, 35-30, I'd probably lose today, move on, and see if we can find some success on the showdown slate. So it's kind of where I'm at in this game.
I love that you're just that's how it is. It's exactly like, if it happens, man. But we're gonna move on. We'll get it back in showdown. That's the attitude to have. I will say, but this is me, so this is why. Like everybody knows, I lose a lot of money playing Geno Smith, but finally nobody wants to play him. This is the spot. Like this Geno, Metcalf, it sets up perfectly. The Stone tells the story. We talked earlier with our, Cousins thoughts and even some of the other ones throughout where it's like it's selling us away from it. This one, I'm getting a little sold on it. He's not full all the way up there in the stack rankings. He's not all the way up there on the Stone, But man, it's a spot like Walker, Metcalf, JSN, Geno. Just pick how you're playing it. That's kind of a little bit of interest for me. And then nobody was, the Breece Hall one's a little more scary just because he wasn't, practicing and stuff and then came back and now he's going to play. But Wilson and Adams, if you do want to run it back, are right there. I kind of like that Devontae Adams game to happen still too. So I got a little bit more interest in Hoop, but it's one of my, if you're playing them always, why go away now? So I'm more pot committed, if you will, the poker analogy there for you. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely with Hoop. This is an X game for me, but it's probably the lowest home game on the slate. Geno, one of the more pass-happy people. It should be concentrated on the Jet side, so you can make the case. Like, I think the Jets will slow it down. I think the Seahawks will try and pound Walker. If I played anyone, it's Devontae. And I do agree with Hoop, better price on FanDuel for sure. But, yeah, if 10-game slate, make it a 9-game slate. I hope this one busts.
Yeah, I know our guy Scarface, who was in here earlier, pumping up the Justin Jefferson talk. He also likes a little Kenneth Walker this week. So it's another one that I would find, like Hoop said, it's hard. There's like 12 guys ahead of him, but I get it. If you land there, it's one of the better matchups on the slate in New York. I mean, this should just be a spot. They just pound Walker and go with it. If that got there, it wouldn't surprise me, at least. I sort of lean with Hoop on. It's not as exciting for me as the Geno stacks that I like. But I do see if someone landed there, it's one of those spots you can just pick up on and you'll see it on Monday and go, yeah, it was a good matchup. He was 7K. It wasn't like he was 8,500 or something, so I could have got to it. And I think that's interesting to note as well. The chat was talking about it, but Devontae Adams on FanDuel, exact same price as DraftKings. That's reminiscent of what we saw last week with some of those receivers like A.J. Brown was super cheap over on FanDuel last week, all things considered, and you get some of these matchups. So I think that's fine as well. Hoop, anything else? If not, take us to the Titans Commanders. I know you didn't have a lot on this game anyway.
Yeah, Titans Commanders. I definitely want to be in on the Commander side. I mean, they lose a piece, obviously, in Austin Eckler, and it's another one of those situations where I thought, okay, Austin Eckler is now out. Brian Robinson's ownership is going to skyrocket and just really didn't come to fruition, or it hasn't yet. Maybe it comes up a little bit. I think he's a really good play on the slate without Austin Eckler. A little more pass catching upside, goal line stuff. I mean, the risk obviously of the goal line is that it's just like Jaden Daniels that gets it in. But I really like Brian Robinson at the 6,100 price tag. They're favored by about 6 here, 5.5, 6. So essentially a touchdown favorite at home, and he has multiple touchdown upside. Jaden Daniels is priced up a little bit. I said I want to be on these priced up quarterbacks. He's one of them. Terry McLaurin, it is interesting. I mean, just every week now, just no ownership, at all. He's 1% owned. He has the big play upside. If I'm playing Jaden Daniels, I definitely want some scary Terry. He's priced in an awkward range. No one wants to go there. I think he's a great play on the slate. Not a guy that I'm going to play 20% of, but even if you play 5, you could be 5x the field. He's literally coming in with no ownership whatsoever. So I'm very interested in him. Noah Brown, and then Zach Ertz. The nice thing about him, if you don't want to play him with scary Terry, he gets very cheap. Noah Brown, 4,400. Zach Ertz, 3,800. I don't hate pairing him with both those guys, a double stack. Now, on the other side, not a ton for me. I mean, Calvin Ridley, and that's probably it, just Calvin Ridley, and I'm fine with that. I mean, he has 15 target upside if they're trailing. They'll just throw it to this guy. And we know the story with Westbrook Akina. He's going to score a touchdown at some point. Is anyone going to play him? No. And we're all just going to be sitting there tilting red zone, watching his ass. All right, yeah, Titan scored. You know what's coming. I mean, when the incoming Titan touchdown comes, just know that it's going to be Westbrook Akina, and you're going to have 25% Ridley, and you're going to want to break your fucking TV. That's what happens every week. But to me, two plays that definitely stand out. Brian Robinson Jr., I thought his ownership would skyrocket. It really didn't. And then Terry McLaurin, just unowned, like unowned. Love that play.
I like Noah Brown too. Actually, I'm on the Jaden.
I'm definitely in on him too. I like the whole Washington side for sure. Like Noah Brown's getting a little ownership, not a ton at all, and I like him. But the reason I pointed out McLaurin is just the zero ownership.
Yeah, 1% is crazy. The stack ranking looks pretty lucky today too over on the site for this game. If you're looking at the Stone little 777 action, so I'm interested. But the Westbrook Akina thing is it's whatever. If bet the anytime touchdown, it seems to always hit. But I do enough of the review and looking at these lineups. It's not like he's always there. He had a couple games where he still shows up, but it's oftentimes just an anytime touchdown. And on that note, and kicking it over to you, Title, the chat is really high on having a discussion around $5,400 Jeremy McNichols. Do you want to quickly handle that one? How are you handling that?
Well, I think it's a fair point when talking Brian Robinson stuff, because I know Brian Robinson was beat up last week and there is no Eckler, but they are very willing to use McNichols, or both of them, Robinson, and then they mix them in. They're the same type of running backs, both hard-nosed, power, can run up the gut. And that does concern me a little bit for Robinson. I do think they're at home, decent-sized favorites. No Austin Eckler. It all sets up for that. But I actually think I prefer Pollard because I am worried about the McNichols stuff. The touchdown equity for Robinson is minus 130, which is fair. But Daniels always has the outs to get there. And Pollard handled all the work last week without Tajee Spears. It was a tough spot. He still got there. He can catch passes. You can run him back in a lot of ways. So I prefer the Daniels stuff if I am stacking. To Noah Brown would be my favorite. And then Ertz. I like the price savings. Terry McLaurin, though, of course, added. Siebert, so many good Daniels teams last week, but he couldn't make an extra point. If I'm playing Terry, I'm definitely playing Daniels, but I do prefer the savings with Brown, Ertz, who's always on the field. Brian Robinson and Pollard is right in that same Chase Brown range where you can leverage that way. Of course, you can play them both, but I think my preferred side is Pollard just getting all the work. It is do I love the Titans with Will Levis? No, but you also get a little leverage, I think, off of Calvin Ridley stuff, who's still a fair price tag. People will go there. If Titans are competitive or you play Daniel stuff and you go Pollard instead of Ridley, you will get different a little bit there. So the game's okay. I worried the Titans stuff. They do have to put up points. They did last week in a dome. I think a more difficult spot this week. But Pollard, Ridley, what Hoop said about Westbrook-Ikine probably scores. Commander stuff, Noah Brown, Ertz. And I'm good just Pollard, Brown, Pollard, Ertz, Ridley, Brown, stuff like that, skinny stacks. But I will play some Jaden Daniels. What do you have, 3 points going into half last week? Finished with 35. That just shows the type of big play upside he has.
Yeah, I like the Pollard call. Another one, if you're looking at the stone, that you'll see why it pops out, and it just nobody's really getting to it. They're just not landing there. It's actually great leverage on a slate where Ridley is getting the ownership there, so I'm fine with it. And they use him in different ways. He gets a ton of work out there. I know with the Spears stuff back and all that, but he still gets targets. He can get you there at just $6,300. By the way, $100 more than Chase Brown. So is that crazy and risky? It feels that way, but you're allowed to play both, or you could use that as a leverage option as well. Yeah. And go ahead, Hoop. Yeah.
Just two things to add. It looks like Spears could come back. I think Pollard can still get all the work. Don't get me wrong, but that's just one thing to note. And then a second thing to note is please don't play McNichols at 5,400. There is 20 some really, really good running back plays on this slate. He'd have to beat some really, really good guys at the position. Please don't click the McNichols name if you were considering it. I don't know if people are just saying, he's going to steal some of the work from Robinson. Yeah, that's very possible, but don't play him in DFS. It's got to be the worst play on the slate.
Yeah, bet him. Like I said, you can go bet anytime touchdown is plus 240. So that's a pretty good bet if you're just straight up. People want to bet on a team to win at minus 110. Go bet if you got this guy as your dude, and you want to hedge a little or whatever you want to do, plus 240 to score the touchdown. Make it easy on yourself. Make it 11-1 and put Nick Westbrook-Ikine in there. That you get McNichols and him scoring a touchdown. No one's going to have it in DFS together, but you can get 11-1 on that bet. I just checked it out for you. So I think that's interesting. I don't know if he's asking, Jake's always there, so I want to respond, but I prefer Aaron Jones for sure if I'm picking one, if that's what you're asking. But I'm just saying I look for these things when I'm going through game by game and trying to find angles to attack the slate. Pollard is $100 more than Brown in an absolute great matchup, and people are talking way more about the other side. And they're playing Ridley, so there's a bunch of sort of levers that you can pull there and make it work in your favor. So I like that a little bit. Let's switch it up. We're getting to the 3 afternoon games, so I'm going to go to you first, Title, and take us into this Buccaneers-Panthers game. Some definite talking points here, and even Bryce Young mentions in the chat throughout the day. So let's go through this one.
I will say, Bryce Young, him getting benched was definitely the best thing that could have happened. Watching him, he's making some good throws. Now, I'm not playing him in DFS, advocating that way, but he actually has impressed me since he's came back. I mean, if we have the stone up, you guys got to click the like button. You want to see the stone here. But one guy, David Moore, and his ownership is absolutely insane. And it feels like the Booty situation where there's just no value on the slates. Like, it should be a good game script. They're 6-point dogs. They're at home. The thing is, like, Adam Thielen is back, though. They do like this Leggett guy. There is Chuba still there. At the end of the day, it's Bryce Young throwing the football, and they're applied for 20 points. Yeah, I'm going to play some David Moore, but, like, man, it just – there's always a couple times where one guy is just way higher owned than anyone would expect. You ask a casual on the street, yo, David Moore is one of the most popular receivers today. Like, what in the world? Like, anyone would fade that. So, you want leverage? Thielen's right there. Leggett's right there. I'm fine with both of them. Chuba, I think, is the best way to get different, or just fade the whole Panthers team because they suck. So, yeah, I'm not playing Bryce Young. Chuba's a little interesting. I would prefer the Thielen Leggett's if I'm going that way. Buccaneers side, I mean, Bucky looks really good at 5,800. The problem is, I mean, man, if they run out Sean freaking Tucker at the 1-yard line when Bucky gets him down there every time, it is really going to tilt me. And Rachaad White is most definitely still involved in this offense. 34 snaps, Bucky, 32 for White. The game did get out of hand. It does feel like they do prefer Bucky, and I'm rolling with that. Props helped us out last time. He's strong at 5,800. Just know Sean Tucker might come in for some garbage. Rachaad White will be in there a little bit. I think my favorite play is just Mike Evans, though. This Panthers team is awful. A big Mike Evans game, I think, is coming pretty soon. No better spot to get right than today. You could see a big boy, 150, 170. Looking at ownership, it is getting some because of the price tag at 6,700. That's chalk I'm worth eating. I think a Bucky, Mike Evans has a good chance to get there today. And then, hey, no one really wants to play K. Dotton at tight end. He's obviously had some big games. And Baker, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll let you talk about Baker, but how many times has he broke a slate and his ownership just doesn't move?
That's what I was going to say for sure. This is one of the most interesting because this is like everybody likes Evans because the price tag is 6,700 and he's that dude. But it's like Baker is getting no ownership and people are playing Bucky for good reason. I love Bucky this slate as well. But you can play Baker, Bucky, Evans. You can play Baker, Bucky, Otton. You can play Baker, Evans, Otton. There's so many ways to go. But notice I'm saying Baker in all of those. So I'm very interested. I'm in. I think it's a great spot. I prefer that. I know others are talking about the Bryce Young side of things. I think Thielen on the other side is great leverage. I don't mind if you, again, this won't be sneaky for a combo, a secondary stack, but it does make things work. If you want to go like Bucky, David Moore, I'll definitely have that in some because if I'm playing that value, I want to make it make sense. I want Bucky to get there on the ground. I want Moore to have to catch passes coming back the other way. And it is 1,300 less than Thielen. But on FanDuel, Thielen is almost the same price as Moore. So, I like Thielen on FanDuel as well. He's, 4,800. I think I would rather play, I don't know, it's close. Let me kick this to you, Hoop. Adam Thielen on DraftKings at 4,800 at all, or would you play Pierce at 4,900 in that indie game earlier?
Thielen, and it's not even close. I actually really like Thielen. Our guy Schloob's in there talking about it. I mean, again, another situation where I thought Thielen would just come in with some ownership today. Because of, I mean, really, when he's on the field, he's been good. He's kind of the clear like number one, and it's another week removed from the injury. I think he's a phenomenal play, and the ownership's not following. So I'm in on him. David Moore at 35. Yeah, I mean, it's weird that David Moore is going to be one of the more popular wide receivers on the slate. And then Leggett at 51. Good with him. I mean, I'm clicking the Bryce Young name, I think, for the first time ever, maybe in fantasy. Like, first time I've ever clicked his name, I think is going to be today. 3 legitimate pairing options. I don't even hate fully punting tight end with Tremble on some teams. So I have 4 options to pair with them. I got run backs that I really like on the other side. Bucky, I have the same concerns, though. Like, I'm going to play him, probably be a little underweight on him just because there's risk there. Like, it could be Rachaad White, it could be Tucker. Like, there's guys coming in there potentially to steal the touchdowns, but Bucky does clearly look the best. Mike Evans, I think, phenomenal play. I agree. He could just break the slate today, and I don't think the ownership is high enough. I think he should be upper 20s in terms of ownership. I think he's a really, really strong play today at 67. And then K. Dotton, like, no one wants to play him at tight end. Sign me up. I'll definitely take him. I don't hate the Baker stuff. Like, I don't know if I can get there, if I'm going to get there personally, just because you can't play everyone. I mean, I guess you could, but you're probably not going to win any money. You got to make some cuts somewhere. So I'll just play the Bryce Young stuff on the other side, knowing that I'm going to have the Tampa Bay skill position players on those teams. I don't know. It's I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a high scoring game, to be honest with you. Bryce Young has actually looked pretty good recently. He has all the weapons, Chuba Hubbard as well, you can throw in there. It's a weird feeling, but man, this game looks very tasty today. Very, very tasty on all levels.
Yeah, so I guess that the nice part is you sort of added it in at the end. Like if Mike Evans breaks the slate, that's exactly why I want Baker, but you're using him with Bryce. So the key is like that's the whole point. If he goes up, one thing can set the other off. I feel better about the Buccaneers side because it also could just be a blowout. Like you could just play Baker, Bucky, Evans, Otton, and even add in the defense and just run an onslaught here, I think. But if you want to make those decisions on the other side, you're making some choices. I just don't feel as comfortable picking between Leggett, Thielen, Moore, Tremp. Like I feel way better about the Tampa side and just letting one of those guys fall in on the opposite. So I'm good here. I like that, but that's why I would like Baker. I do think it's what you said, Hoop. If you see a Mike Evans 2-touchdown game, it's probably with 150 yards and catches and everything, and that's going to be really helpful to Baker. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, thinking back about what I said, I laughed too, but it's definitely all relative. It's all relative. This is not like a Cincinnati Bengals situation where we got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase going out there. It's all relative to the squad, but he does have all his weapons. Not all weapons are created equal.
It's not the weapons; it's his weapons. That's what he has to go into the war with. That's who he's got, man. He's got all his weapons. Not saying they're the greatest weapons, but yeah, that's a good one. Let's flip it back, Hoop. I'll stay with you for the second of the afternoon games. This one also looks pretty enticing, and I guess it makes for the case too. Pretty good late swap slate here with these three games in the afternoon, because the last one, when we get to the Eagles-Ravens, looks like it's going completely untouched. So if you get to the afternoon and you're on these other two games, the Buccaneers-Panthers looks to be the most, I don't know, they're both pretty chalky, to be honest, this one we're about to go to, but you can flip it around with some of these options we'll talk about in these last two games. And then obviously the Eagles-Ravens, nobody's on, but Hoop, take us into the Rams-Saints for the second last game of the slate.
Yeah, really solid game. I mean, total, is it the highest total? It's sitting at 49.50. Yeah, highest total on the slate. Some pretty clear plays in this game. The pass catching side for the Rams. I mean, Puka just looks phenomenal, man. I mean, he just looks like the real deal, and it's the guy that Stafford wants to go to as often as possible. One thing with Stafford, like he'll lock in on a guy and just keep going to him. We saw it obviously with Kelvin Johnson all throughout his career. Puka might be the second best receiver he's thrown to outside of Kelvin Johnson. The guy looks good. They have a great connection, great chemistry, and I think he's a phenomenal play in the slate. Cooper Kupp, lower ownership, obviously, but obviously Stafford has a really good connection with him as well. So you have two pairings. They're both under 8K, I think very solid. But Matthew Stafford not really coming with much ownership, and I like the Matthew Stafford stuff today at 5,800. He's in there with Herbert. He's in there with Anthony Richardson. He's going to come in lower owned than kind of all those guys up there. I'm in on the Stafford stuff for sure. The one thing that definitely stood out, I'm going to take a page out of Title's book here, is the touchdown props. The guy with the best touchdown prop on the slate is Kyron Williams, 7,200. And, when I saw that, I had bumped it up a little bit. I mean, it's a big boy number. I mean, he's minus like 235 to score a touchdown, highest on the slate. So he leverages off of, the Puka stuff, off of the Cooper Kupp stuff. I think a really good play. And then on the Saints side, Alvin Kamara is going to be somewhat popular, really good play. Taysom Hill is going to be somewhat popular. But the nice thing about those two, it could just be all their offense. I mean, it could be Kamara and Taysom Hill could account for every point that they scored today outside of like extra points and field goals. I initially had some interest in Derek Carr, but there's just so much risk with Taysom Hill, him coming in at like the 5 or 10 yard line. They're going to do it. So I kind of went away from the Derek Carr stuff. So I'm just going to really rely on Kamara, Taysom Hill, and like the MVS stuff. Now he's 4,500, Cedric Wilson. If it's those guys, cool. Like, I don't get the game right. If it's a ton of Kamara, a ton of Taysom Hill, then we'll be in good shape today. But it's a game where I feel like I can get all the offensive weapons, get overweight on all the offensive weapons. And if this does score 50, I could have it all. So really like this game. Very appealing for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, I like the Kyren Williams one is also what makes it hard to get to some of those other guys we talked about earlier at 69 and 7K, even though they're nice pivots for the slate. Is I actually like the Kyren Williams spot probably the best of all of them. And I was going to talk about that because when you land in that zone, and oftentimes this is your flex play too, because you're landing in an afternoon game, so you're moving things around. Most people will have Puka there or even go to Cup, and you can get to Kyren right there at 7,200 and even get a little bit more cash back to do something with it. So, Title, I'll kick it to you on this game. It also looks like Stafford's getting a little love, but again, it's still cheaper to stack Stafford, Nakua, and Cup than it is to go get Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. So it's kind of like a pick your spot thing. And then I guess the only thing I will say is the Marquez Valdez-Scantling seems gross, but it's got to be good leverage on this slate for the price. He's 4,500, and a lot of people are looking at the 35 or going above that price, and a lot of people are playing Kamara or Taysom Hill, and sometimes both. So I think that's the only reason I even have any interest in trying to make that one work. What do you got on this one, Title?
Yeah, I mean, I can't hate that at all. A big play guy. We've seen it happen multiple times. He's leveraged off of Kamara, Taysom. Other than that, though, it's just Kamara, Taysom on that side for me. Can you play them together, people ask? I mean, you can. The reason I'm hesitant is they're both going to get ownership, and they're both like not free by any means. And when Taysom scores, it obviously means Kamara is not. So I think you can play them both, but it's not my favorite routes. Expect like Millie Maker stuff. It's not my favorite route. You're playing a tournament with 500 people or something. It's a lot more viable that way. You don't need the complete nuts to win. Ram side really easy. What Hoop said, stealing my thunder, looking at all these props. Yeah, highest on the slate, minus 235, and leverage off of one of the most popular receivers in Puka. Like, he's not getting too much ownership, 14% we have. I think he makes sense for all the reasons. And yeah, I test everything. Puka's the man. But, I mean, I think we could see half the ownership with Cooper Kupp for a little cheaper. It just feels like a really clear pivot. Kyren and Cooper Kupp. Again, my brain, and I know football thinks Puka. I got to go game theory route. I will be playing Puka. I do think Stafford gets some ownership, and it'll be Stafford, Puka, Kupp. To be honest, that's chalk on fine eating because I can totally see Stafford going 300 plus, then getting there. You pick a Taysom, Kamara, MVS run back, even play an MVS and another one if you want. And then you just absolutely just want this game to nuke one of the higher totals, second highest on the slate, in a dome. So many ways, very concentrated on the Rams side. So Kyren Kupp look like good leverage plays. Puka, one of the best plays on the slate with ownership. You can play Stafford, Kupp, Puka. Just try and get a little difference elsewhere, especially if you are running back Kamara or Taysom.
Another thing, too, opposite side of Kamara. We always talk about this stuff, but let me ask you this one then, Title. I just found this little 2v2 swapperoo. All the Kamara Nakua lineups can be flipped to Kyren Williams, Justin Jefferson.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that easy.
Yeah.
Is that, what do you think, though? That's pretty crazy. That has to be way lower owned, and that has the potential to just smash. And you're in the same game, you're leveraging against Kamara, and you're going away from it. If it's not going to be the passing game, you're flipping the passing game to somewhere else. So I just look for little things like that. And I think that was one that stood out. You know what also stood out? Who probably the best comment ever that I can remember this season. Just hilarious. You talking about the Titans and their weapons. Or the Panthers and their weapons. He said, I feel like I'm listening to someone talk themselves into buying a Volkswagen Golf. That is a great comment.
That's really good. Look at all the features this Volkswagen Golf has.
Like, I'm still looking at a Volkswagen. No shame against anybody out there with the Golfs. It makes sense to what you're talking about. It's not, it's not Mercedes. It's not the high end. It's just, you're looking at this. You gotta sell it. Some people will still buy it. So. Last game of the slate, guys. This is the comment here that came up. Said the Eagles-Ravens, the worst DFS on the game on the slate, slow-paced run games all day, and certainly possible, but also just remembering, the game of DFS as a whole is that's what's playing out here. Nobody's going to this game. There's like no ownership on anyone. Maybe Zay Flowers gets a little bit, but nobody's really playing anyone from this game. And if you have to late swap and you want to find a game to go to, this still is one of the worst pass defenses in the entire NFL with my favorite team, the Ravens. So give me your thoughts on this one, Hoop. I'll let you start it off. Title's got the bladder thing going on over there.
He's going to hide the backdrop of his Volkswagen Golf picture, so it's annoying. Yeah, I mean, the reason people are saying this is the worst game because it's hard to get to for fantasy purposes. Like, if they're all priced $1,000 less, everyone would say, yeah, this is the best game to get to. The reason everyone is saying it's the worst game to get to is because of the price tags, and it's hard. You got 2 running backs, Saquon Barkley, who is probably the best running back in football, 8,500, tough to play him. Derrick Henry, 7,800, very tough to play him as well. Quarterbacks, both expensive. A.J. Brown, 8,300, expensive. Zay Flowers finally has a little bit of a price breakdown to 62, but it's the pricing. That's why people are having difficulty get here, because it's awkward when you start building these teams out and playing them. That's why I want to be on it. I want to be on this game. I'm going to play Saquon. I'm going to play Derrick Henry. I'm playing Hurts. I'm playing Lamar Jackson. I'm going to play a lot of A.J. Brown. It's not comfortable when you start building these teams out, but these are guys that have the ability to completely nuke this slate at really, really low ownership. So in on all of it, the price or the cheaper plays in this game, Dallas Goedert, 4,300. Really like him. Sounds like Devonta Smith is going to be out, which is obviously big for A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert, and probably even like Saquon Barkley as well. It's a boost for me to all those guys. So in on everything on the Eagles side. It's not going to, especially if you're doing 150 teams, it's not going to take a lot to get way overweight. The Raven stuff, Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers, Bateman, Mark Andrews. I'm good with all of that. And I will try to, include some Derrick Henry as well. So I'm going to be in on all parts of this game. Every single part of it's going to be low owned, besides I'd say probably like A.J. Brown. Goddard will probably now get some ownership now that it's sounding like Devonta Smith is out, but 51 total, low ownership. I'm certainly in on this one in all ways possible.
Yeah, I've been talking about this the last couple of weeks anyway, and having some success with it too over on FanDuel. But you can really get, if you can't get to these guys on DraftKings, I get it. But on FanDuel, you can easily get to them. A lot of the prices barely change. A.J. Brown, 8,300 on DraftKings, 8,800 on FanDuel. Mark Andrews is 5,600. If you don't like him, Goddard is 6K. Guess what? Taysom Hill, 7K on FanDuel. So it's like these prices are fair over there. So if you are playing on both sites, but title, real quick, we were talking about a Volkswagen Golf. I know Hoop said maybe you're going to hide your pictures, but from a Volkswagen Golf to Lambo Lamar. Don't forget Lamar in these NFC matchups. We're going upgrading here to a Lambo now, and you got Hurts on the other side if you want to go that route. But talk to us about this game, and can you give the people any insight on where you disappeared to there? Are we saving that for a next guessing game?
No, I heard y'all chirping, and you were right, Tambo. I was taking a piss. I had to pull out a hoopster, but what the heck's this Volkswagen golf clubs? Like, how broke are these things?
Golf clubs.
What the heck? Golf clubs? You're actually talking about the car, the Volkswagen?
That makes it even better. He said golf clubs.
He said the golf clubs. Title is so rich, he's not at the Volkswagen dealership looking at golfs. He doesn't even know what the car is.
I'm still driving my same Toyota Camry I got. It's my first car, junior year of high school. So
I know.
College.
I got a Camry as well. Camry homies. Yeah, so
nothing better than the Toyota Camry, run forever. But so it's a Volkswagen. Oh, the car. I thought it was some like broke golf clubs you were chirping on or something. No,
it's too good. Way too good.
Yeah,
golf season right around the corner too. It's a good segue.
Good segue. Good salesmanship over there, Title. We're getting ready for PGA season coming back here. We're going to start previewing it in December, and then full go when it comes back in January. Shout out to Degenerate75. Myself going to do some shows in December, and then Hoop will be back on the crew, and we'll be all together for January and beyond, just crushing it. But yeah, that's the one. Now they're saying Lamar is the Audi of the slate. We're trying to rank these quarterbacks as cars. But go ahead, Title. Take this game.
Ross K always got the jokes. I appreciate you, Ross. And I do think at Beetlebane, if I saw it was your birthday, someone up above. Shout out to you. This game, it's definitely a late swap game. Like you mentioned, the afternoon window, it's by far the lowest owned of all of them. Now,
they're killing you, man. So
now, the thing is, late swapping, like the Puka stuff, you can, if you have stuff, you can get A.J. Brown and maybe 2v2s. It's expensive is obviously the problem. My favorite way to go is definitely AJ or Hurts, A.J. Brown. You just need a skinny stack because you have all the Hurts goal line tush push upside there. We saw A.J. Brown when there was no Devonta Smith, still waiting on that news. Just target monster. And you talk about the Ravens, one of the best pass funnels, the biggest pass funnels out there. So I'm good. Hurts, A.J. Brown. I don't even think you need a run back. I don't think you need to do anything after that. Again, especially because of that goal line tush push upside. Raven side, I don't know if I'm going to get to Lamar. It's just so expensive. I really love Zay. for sure. I prefer Henry in the 700 savings from Saquon, so I prefer Henry that way. 2.5-point favorites at home. It's really hard to go like Hurts, AJ Brown, Henry. So I think my favorite approach is it's either just Derrick Henry, slows the game down, gets there that way. I do prefer the Hurts, AJ Brown, nothing else in this game, but I do like Goddard too. That 4,300 price tag. If there is no Smith, I think he probably comes under-owned a little bit. So yeah, Hurts, AJ Brown, Goddard, Zay Flowers on the other side is, and I got to mention Rashad Bateman. Shout out to him. He came through on the Monday stuff. No one is going to play Rashad Bateman on the field a ton. Highest total on the slate. I think he could be a sneaky play, similar to not Addison that we're talking about, Jefferson. Who was the other one that I mentioned earlier? Wide receiver 2. Oh, Tank Dell. Dell. No one's playing it that way. So yeah, I think it's more Philly side for me. Hurts, Brown, Goddard.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Bateman. I was going to just add that in because one of the things I've just noticed in looking ahead at the slate and wanted to bring this up with the late swap conversation is if you just have like Kamara and Puka, there's only so much you can do, right? Like you're going to have to punt somewhere else, or like what do? You can go to you could go to Barkley, but then you're going to have to drop Puka down to someone, and that's why you have to have names like that in the mix, because between these three games of the afternoon, some of those other guys are going to come up. If you've got a full game stack, though, that's where you could go from like Stafford, Nakua, Kupp, and Kamara and pick your poison on if it's like a Lamar, Zay, Bateman with Barkley, or if it's a Hurts, AJ Brown with Zay, and then go somewhere else with your money on the afternoon. That's what you're going to be looking at. So some of these guys will have to be options that you consider if you are late swapping in the afternoon slate. Title, any final thoughts from you, man? Anything else you want to talk about for the slate?
Man, it's a fun one. Yeah, we definitely like some Bijan. I like Bijan myself, but always a fun show. Free Money Sunday. No better days out there. They're coming slowly but surely to an end, which is never fun. But hey, plenty of money to be made. Late swaps always important. Showdown content for tonights, and yeah, it's always enjoy these. So good luck today, everybody.
Yeah, appreciate it. And Morse, man, I've tried to warn you guys. Like, he's right on all of them. He got one wrong, and it got clipped, and everyone they're looking for this play now. His record is like 99.9%. When he tells you someone's good and they suck, they hit. When he tells you they suck, they usually suck. The MVS hoop was a one-off.
Yeah, it's been on a roll lately. So I don't know. I'll say just everything from the Seattle Jets game. I'm just not playing that one. So if anything gets there, that'll be the shit on play of the day. You got a bunch that you can hit me up on. So all those plays.
That's not good for me. I do have at least.
I will say if you are playing that game as a stack, I definitely prefer the Seattle side. And I get your point. Like, you've been playing it, stick with it. That's what I've been doing with Jefferson all year. And hopefully you guys are right about the Jefferson stuff, that today's the day, because there's certain plays, if you've been playing it all year, you just stick with it. And that's why I kind of got talked into CJ Stroud today. I've been playing CJ Stroud all year long. Really hasn't worked out. You really haven't needed him. So at low ownership, I might as well just stick with it. So that's I got talked into that one. And, that's kind of you with Seattle. You've been on Geno all season long. It has paid off though a couple times. Like, he's had good games. But you might as well stick with it. There's no reason to get off. Yeah,
5,500. I'm going to take a few shots with him. And Metcalf coming in that lower ownership at 6,400. Like, that's these guys on the slate today, man. Metcalf and Evans, and you just talked about it with Jefferson. Like, you can get to these guys and you can get them stacked in there. Like, this is a good looking slate, because I think a lot of people are going a similar direction. So Hoop, any final thoughts from you on the slate as a whole? Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Yeah, that's the Hoop shit on lineup right there. So stack the Jets, Seahawks with McNichols and MVS as one-off. That would be the full shit on lineup if you want to go that route today, to really pound me and win the millie with something like that. That would be very interesting. You wanted to pull that up?
Do you see these? Yeah. Dodge Caravan, for Kirk Cousins, they're putting all the vehicles on these players now.
Yeah. So yeah, we still got the promo running. Obviously, BF50 if you want 50% off any of our all access packages. You can get a package with the Shiptimizer as well. kind of gave you guys the heads up yesterday I believe, on the football rest of season package, which includes college football. And that team has just been absolutely smashing. It's a great opportunity. If you're paying right now for college football somewhere else and NFL, like, you come here, it's all one price. Like, we're not charging you any extra for college football. I mean, we have everything you need. We have a team. I mean, honestly, our team for college football might be the biggest team that we have in a number of just guys focused on college football. We have a big team of guys behind the scenes working on it. So it's not like just a throwing out product that we're just like, putting out shit for. We have guys very deep into this, dedicated to college football. So that's all part of the football package. If you want to do that rest of the season, $99. If you want to do it with Shiptimizer, $129 gets you all the way through the Super Bowl, includes all showdowns, going to include all the playoff content. Great time, obviously, to get in. We'd love to have you. Discord access as well, which is very important.
Yeah, and honestly, it's we're biased. It's obviously our site, but I would say that the three of us talk about it a bunch. And you just brought up a great point: the sweaty tryhards, the DGen 75 mentality. It, like, anybody will tell you, there's been tons of interviews out there that you can watch, and top pros and players will tell you, if you have good projections that are different, you're going to set yourself up for success. Our NBA team has been crushing because we have good projections that are different. Members crushing, all kinds of big wins. Our guy Sean won $50K last week. Like, it's happening in NBA. College football, like Hoop just said, they're literally behind the scenes. There's a group chat that's not for members. This is like the team that works on the projections. They're flying around all day with all this beat writer news and everything. And then they're going and manually adjusting, not just this guy's out, so give it all to that guy. They're saying, no, some goes here. I think this happens. And they put it together. And we do the same, speaking to PGA earlier, when that comes back. Well, the rest of the industry is making their showdown projections off of their main slate projections, which, when there's a clear weather edge or an advantage or a reason that the projections should be different, we're adjusting for that and putting you a step ahead. So the time is now. Join the nation. Get in on the action. We've got everything you need there. It's all covered. If you want the BF50 promo, $34.50 for the first month to try it out, or $49.50 if you want to add in Shiptimizer for NFL, NBA, the other sports that we might have it for that you're playing. So it's going to be a good day, guys. Week 13. Excited for this one. Shout out to everybody that hit the like. Make sure you're subscribed. We will have the giveaway, I assume, next show, probably tomorrow, for the Monday Night Football show, just because we're about to hit 9,000. So thank you guys for that. The drive for 10K is up next, and hopefully we can get there by the end of the season, because that's going to be the $999 giveaway, the complete all-access annual pass. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Hoop, Title, and for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it!